I'm David Cotton. I'm a father, a brother, a son. I'm a retired U.S. Air Force Brigadier General, a former senior executive in the Department of Defense, a corporate vice president, and now a life coach. At age 58, I told my wife, my kids, and the world, I'm gay. Join me as I talk with others who've made this coming out journey late in life to become who they really are.
You're listening to Out Late with David.
My guest today has seen the best of people and the worst. A longtime member of the Des Moines, Iowa School Board and successful attorney, married with kids, he came out publicly on live TV at age 50. His law office was flooded with supportive messages and flowers. But when he tried to run for re-election, he received death threats and he feared for his life. He has an amazing coming out story and an inspiring life. Today we talk with attorney Jonathan Wilson. Jonathan, thank you for being here.
You are welcome.
When you came out publicly, around 50 years old, you're a lawyer, a public servant, married, father of two, and to the outside world, you had it made. What was it like for you keeping this huge secret, given your public life?
Well, to the outside world, it would have appeared that I had it made, no question about that. The public doesn't really know maybe what's going on behind the scenes. And I had been living with issues around my sexual orientation since the age of 5. I didn't have a name for it. I just sensed that there was something different. I got married thinking, well, that would fix these feelings. It didn't work. My former spouse got pregnant, and I thought, that'll do it. I'll be a father, and these feelings will go away. That didn't work. Having a second child didn't work. So I started doing a lot of researching and reading countless books about homosexuality and coming out and how to do it and what it meant and what it was going to mean. I think one of the big things that happened was attending a California men's gathering. And it's a long weekend with 400 or 500 men. Perhaps 75% of them are gay. Another 20% maybe are questioning, wondering. And maybe 5% are genuinely heterosexual people who are just liberal allies. And I met there some remarkable people.
I agree. I'm an active member of the local group of the Mankind Project, and it really did change my life as well. Let me ask you, how did you approach coming out to your wife?
Well, it was pretty tough. She knew something was wrong. She could tell that I was really stressed. She would beseech me to tell me, Jonathan, what's wrong? What's stressing you? I don't care what it is, just tell me. Let's get it figured out. We had had a very good relationship, very open communication kind of relationship. And it was finally with her encouragement that I told her. For a period of time, I was also in a relationship with another man. And she was acquainted with him, liked him. And we would even get together occasionally and talk about, okay, who's going on vacation with whom, and who's going to water the plants, and who's going to take the kids to dance lesson or to football practice or whatever. And I think that the fact that she knew who I was in a relationship with helped, and that she liked him helped a lot. I still hadn't really decided that this was for me. And over time, I became more and more convinced that the more authentic interaction, intimate interaction, was with my male partner. And so I came out to her, and we worked through it, and we were married for a number of years after I came out to her until we made the mutual decision that I talked about to terminate our relationship so that it would be better for each of us.
You grew up in a religious family. Your father was a minister. How did you come to terms with your feelings when you're being told that homosexuality was a sin?
When I started thinking about what the Bible says, and clearly the biblical writers believed that the earth is flat, that heaven is up, hell is down, that the earth is the center of the created universe, all of which isn't true. The fact that people could be homosexual wasn't realized until around 1930, 35, somewhere in there. There are homosexual people, there are bisexual people. We need to forgive the biblical writer their ignorance of those facts, just as surely as we forgive them for thinking that the earth is the center of the created universe. And so that was the sort of epiphany that I came up with, that this isn't a sin.
How did you come out to your parents?
I'd read a number of coming out stories and books and whatnot, and finally decided, okay, the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to write them a letter. But before I send it, I'm going to call them to see if they're going to be at home on Saturday. Called them to find out if they would be there the next Saturday. Told them I'd like to come and spend the day. They noticed that I didn't say anything about my wife and the kids. But heck, their only son was going to come visit. That's a good thing. Yeah, come, we're going to be here. So on the Tuesday before that, I sent them the letter. And I told them what was going on and what I'd been going through. Told them that both of my sisters had a copy of the letter, so if they needed to talk to someone who loved them and cared for them before I showed up on Saturday, they could call either of my sisters. But otherwise, I was planning to be there on Saturday. Friday night, I called both of my sisters, said, have you heard anything from the folks? No, they hadn't heard anything. So the next morning, I got up and got in the car to go down to the farm, and it's about 2 hours to get to the farm normally. I was apoplectic. I'd have to keep pulling off to the side of the road just to get air back in my lungs. But I'd already sent the damn letter, so I couldn't undo that. It's like that once you've seen something, you can't unsee it. And so I kept going. It took me a little over 3 hours to get to the farm. And I drove into the driveway. There's a big oak tree out to the west of the house. And they had it wrapped in yellow ribbons and bows. And all of the other trees in the yard had yellow ribbon streamers. And there was red carpet stretched from the front door out to the driveway. And I went in after finally getting some composure again. And I found my parents in tears. Not because their only son is gay. They were in tears because I'd been in such pain, and they hadn't known, and they hadn't been able to do anything about it.
You're listening to Out Late with David.
If you'd like to learn more about coming out later in life, I recommend Finally Out, Letting Go of Living Straight by Dr. Lauren Olson. Other resources are also listed at my website, outlatewithdavid.com. Okay, so by this time you've told your wife, you've told your kids, you have this super sweet story about an offer your son made to you before the big school board meeting.
My son and I were talking, and talking about whether I should do this public coming out.
How old is he then, about?
He would have been 20, 19 or 20 maybe. And he said, Dad, I think you should do it. He says, I think it needs to be done, and I think you're the right person, and it's the right time, and I think you ought to do it. But he said, if you decide you just can't, it's okay with me if you say that you've heard the rumors about yourself and they aren't true, and you're so concerned about this issue because you're the proud father of a gay son. And I told him I appreciated him taking the metaphorical bullet for me there, and I was still thinking about it. Well, the meeting was to be on Tuesday night. And Monday night, my son came back to me and said, "So, Dad, what have you decided that you're going to do?" And I said, "Well, I haven't made a final decision on this, but one thing I'm real sure of. Next Wednesday morning, one of us is going to be gay." My son is heterosexual and has two beautiful grandchildren of mine. So he was sitting on the edge of his seat just like everybody else. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to do the coming out thing publicly, because there was a special meeting of the school board. And the special meeting had a single agenda item: homosexuality in the public schools. The place was standing room only in the room. And my former spouse was there. Both of my children were there. My father was there. And my sister, who was also clergy, had flown in from Ohio to be there. And they were all sitting on the front row, ready for this.
I know that my purpose in my life is to create a safe space so others can explore and claim their humanity to live authentically. As a life coach, I want everyone to have the same opportunity to live the life they desire. I'm committed to help you discover the passions in your life and authentic self. If you want to connect with me, you can through my website, davidcottoncoaching.com. Well, I actually reprinted what I think you said based on what I saw there. I wonder if you just read that for us,
Yeah.
Which was part of your statement that you made that night.
Yes. I said, many labels apply to me. I'm a man. I'm a father. Both of my beautiful children are here this evening. I love them more than life, just like other parents love their children. I'm also a son, and my pastor father is here. My mother, who is deceased, is here in spirit. I'm a brother, and my pastor's sister is here. I'm an uncle, a lawyer, and a public servant. I'm a citizen with concerns about diverse issues affecting public education. I try to be a good friend to my friends and a good neighbor to my neighbors, and I'm gay. That does not change any of the other labels. They are all true. The negative things that have been said in recent weeks about gay people, all the awful stereotypes, are lies. I know because I am a gay person. And now this community can know that they are lies too, because this community knows me and has known me for almost a quarter of a century. That was the gist of it.
How does it feel to say those words again?
It dredges up a lot of emotion, frankly. They were genuinely expressed and felt, and but I also knew that there were going to be huge consequences from it.
How did it feel when you're in the room at that time with the family and friends and colleagues all staring at you?
Yeah, it was dead quiet. And it felt like the right thing to do. I had talked to several acquaintances about it, and how to approach it, and what to say, and what would need to be said. And the initial reception was overwhelmingly positive. And like you mentioned in the intro, the next day flowers and bouquets and whatnot were delivered to my office. I had to spread them around to other people's offices because I didn't have room in mine, unless I wanted to have it look like a mortuary. And I started getting calls, countless calls on the phone. It took me and 3 secretaries to take the calls that were coming in. And David, one of the calls came in from a woman in outstate Iowa someplace. I had no idea who she was. And she said, Mr. Wilson, she said, my husband and I have a gay son. And because of what you said and did last night, we don't think our son's going to kill himself. And I want to thank you for keeping my precious baby alive. Well, there have been some ups and downs since I did the coming out. But I think back to that call. She told me I kept someone alive.
Wow. And I would think others we don't even know about. I know, Jonathan, your story inspired me on my journey. Thank you. Now, for you at the time when you came out, I understand the reelection was underway, or soon to come. And I remember hearing stories that you actually had to wear like a bulletproof vest and had other protections because, well, you had others that were not as loving and accepting of your vulnerability.
Oh, yes. We were getting death threats. We had tracks in the snow around the house, up to all the windows. We had a police detail that had been assigned to us. They had identified 2 different safe houses that I could go to with my children if need be. We had to have all the drapes and curtains on the main floor drawn all the time. And I turned out my bedroom light that's on the first floor and slept upstairs in a different bedroom every night because they were most concerned about a firebomb being thrown through the window. When I lost the reelection bid, my police security detail guy says, okay, you can take off the vest. They think they got you.
Did your law practice suffer? Did you start losing clients?
I had 3 clients who stopped using me as their legal counsel. And within 3 years, they were all 3 back. I remember one client, the CEO, calling me and said, we really don't care about your category. It's okay with us. You're a good lawyer and we'll be just fine. She couldn't bring herself to say gay. It's kind of cute.
So you came out, you survived, not the election, but you survived business transition. It sounds like relationships at some level. And then took your energy and action and created something called the First Friday Breakfast Club, which, disclosure for listeners, I'm a member of that, so I know what that organization is. But tell us about the First Friday Breakfast Club and where the need or purpose for that came from.
Well, actually, it harkens back to a book that my parents gave me when I was a little kid. And the name of the book is Saggy Baggy the Elephant. This little elephant who was orphaned and happy-go-lucky. And this beautiful multicolored parrot sees him tromping around and says, gosh, are you ugly? I'm going to call you Saggy Baggy, and was ridiculing him. And he sort of hunkered down in a cave to hide himself from the world, which I would equate to the closet. And one day, along comes a lion, and the little elephant starts running for dear life. And just before the lion got him, the little elephant stumbles and goes roly-poly through a thicket and end up in the presence of a huge herd of full-grown elephants. And the little elephant realized, wait a minute, I'm one of them. And I am the way I'm supposed to be. And I don't have to be afraid anymore. And that's the experience that I had had at the California Men's Gathering. Oh, I'm one of them. And it's okay. And so that's what really sort of inspired the Breakfast Club. We wanted to create a safe place, a comfortable place for people who were out or coming out or questioning or concerned or planning to come out, a safe place where they could actually walk into a room. They could walk into a room and know that everyone there, pretty much, is assuming that they probably are. And it really has, I think, made a difference in the lives of a lot of men over the course of now more than 25 years. We do occasionally do some social things, but our focus is educational, getting educated by our speakers and giving scholarships to students.
I think the scholarships, it's almost $470,000 has been awarded by the club.
That's right. So over time, we have awarded a lot of scholarships.
I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. All that you have worked through, do you have any regrets about coming out?
Well, the answer, I guess, has to be a resounding no. I don't have regrets. I was in the closet for a long time. I was on the school board for 12 years. I feel good about the fact that all the time that I was in the closet, even well after I knew full well that I was a closeted gay man, I never supported anything in terms of public policy or school district policy that was hostile to the gay community.
Well, Jonathan, thank you for telling your story today. The more we share our story, are open and honest with people, provide good examples, it just empowers others to be who they need to be.
Absolutely.
And I know from my personal experience and how you helped me navigate my own coming out later in life journey, thank you, there will be others that will be touched and comforted by what you shared today. Thank you for listening, and thank you again, Jonathan Wilson.
Thank you.
Before we leave, I want to tell you something that happened after Jonathan's interview. After we'd stopped recording, Jonathan asked me to go upstairs to what had been his daughter's bedroom. There, in the middle of the room, was this incredibly detailed miniature dollhouse dominating the space. 3 feet wide, over 2 feet deep, and at the peak of its roof, it must be 3 feet tall. Peering into the window, you could see all of the fine detail in every room of this 3-story home, including the latticed crust cherry pie cooling on the kitchen counter in the dollhouse with a cat curled up on the floor in front of the stove. There were woven rugs, hand-painted lamps, chairs, sofas, beds, every room fully furnished. This is obviously the work of someone who has invested many hours and love into this small version of an ideal life. What touched me was Jonathan telling me how his former spouse of over 20 years comes to this home regularly to work on the dollhouse. After her labor of love, she might join Jonathan and his partner for coffee and lunch. They've obviously successfully worked to keep their friendship alive and thriving even after his coming out. Learning this about them was a beautiful way to end my visit with Jonathan. That's it for now. Join us next time for Out Late with David.
To hear more episodes, visit outlatewithdavid.com. And to learn more about personal life coaching services, go to davidcottoncoaching.com.